If there's one thing everyone looks for in a pickup truck, it's reliability. But even the most renowned brands have launched models that turned out to be complete disasters. Today, I'll show you 25 pickup trucks that have been heavily criticized for their reliability, according to customers and industry experts. 25. Subaru Baja, 2003-2006. The Subaru Baja is one of those experiments that seem to be conceived in a marketing lab rather than in a mechanic's workshop. The idea was to mix the best of a sedan with the practicality of a pickup, but the result was a vehicle that didn't do either job well. Its odd design, with a tiny cargo bed, was barely useful for carrying a bicycle or a couple of suitcases. For those looking for a work truck, it was useless. And for those wanting a comfortable sedan, it was awkward and far from refined. Although it inherited Subaru's typical mechanical reliability, its value proposition was so confusing that the market rejected it immediately. Owners complained about the lack of space, an interior full of cheap plastics, and fuel consumption that didn't match its size. In the United States, sales were so low that today it's more common to see it in eccentric collectors' forums than on the road. Compared to rivals of the time, like the Honda Ridgeline or even other compact Japanese pickups, the Baja had nothing to offer. It wasn't cheaper, it wasn't more practical, and it wasn't more reliable. Subaru tried to innovate but ended up creating a vehicle nobody asked for and nobody needed. Today, spotting one in the used market is almost a joke, a reminder that not every different idea deserves to make it to production. 24. Chevrolet Silverado, 1500-2014. The Silverado is a Chevrolet icon, but the 2014 generation became one of the most criticized in its history. What was supposed to be a robust and reliable truck turned into a headache for thousands of owners. Problems began with the transmission, which showed erratic shifts and premature failures. On top of that came electrical issues that affected everything from the infotainment system to the climate controls. Steering was another source of complaints. Many drivers reported that the truck seemed to have a mind of its own, creating a sense of insecurity on the road. Fuel consumption, far from improving, was excessive for a model that promised efficiency. Consumer Reports gave it one of the worst reliability ratings in its segment. And repair costs became so high that many owners sold their trucks earlier than planned. Compared to rivals like the Ford F-150 or the Ram 1500, the 2014 Silverado fell far behind in durability. The most ironic part is that Chevrolet marketed it as an indestructible beast, when in practice it was the exact opposite. Today in the used market, it's one of those trucks experts strongly recommend avoiding. Before we continue, let me tell you this. This is the channel car dealerships don't want you to watch, because here we show things exactly as they are. No filters, no sugarcoating. Subscribe and leave a like if you don't want to be sold smoke and mirrors, and make sure your next car isn't a cleverly disguised disappointment. 23. Lincoln Blackwood, 2002. The Lincoln Blackwood is remembered as one of the biggest failures in modern automotive history. Conceived as a luxury pickup that was supposed to combine the elegance of a premium sedan with the utility of a truck, it ended up being a vehicle that convinced no one. Lincoln wanted to stand out from the competition by offering something exclusive, but what it delivered was a model that failed to meet the expectations of any segment. The most obvious mistake was its cargo bed, fully carpeted, with delicate finishes, and covered by a rigid lid that made it impossible to carry large or heavy objects. Instead of being practical, it became a decorative accessory. To make matters worse, it was only available with rear-wheel drive, eliminating any possibility of off-road use, a basic requirement for many pickup buyers in the US. On top of that came an extremely high price, which pushed away traditional truck buyers and failed to attract luxury customers who preferred more versatile SUVs. In terms of reliability, it inherited the electronic and suspension problems of the Ford F-150 of that era, which meant costly and frequent repairs. Fewer than 4,000 units were produced before Lincoln canceled the project. Today, the Blackwood is more of a curiosity than a collectible truck, a reminder that luxury without functionality has no place in the pickup world. Ultimately, it's an example of how a poor reading of the market can doom a model from the very start. 22. Nissan Titan, 2004-2006. When Nissan decided to enter the full-size pickup segment in the United States, it did so with the Titan. On paper, it seemed like an interesting bet. A powerful engine, aggressive design, and the promise of competing with giants like Ford and Chevrolet. The Japanese brand wanted to prove it could play in the same league as Detroit's Big Three. However, reality was very different. The rear differentials were so defective that they could fail in the middle of the road, leaving drivers stranded in dangerous situations. The braking system, undersized for the truck's weight and size, caused vibrations, fluid leaks, and premature wear that required constant repairs. The transmission, far from reliable, would give up without warning, turning every trip into a gamble. Owners quickly realized that towing with a Titan was a risk because you never knew if you'd make it to your destination. Consumer Reports punished it with low ratings, and its reputation was so badly damaged that Nissan took years to recover credibility in the segment. In the used market, these Titans are seen as a warning, a model that promised a lot but ended up being a headache. Today, a Titan from those years is synonymous with problems, and few dare to buy one secondhand. It's a clear example of how a bad start can permanently stain a model's reputation. 21. Chevrolet SSR, 2003-2006. The Chevrolet SSR was one of General Motors' strangest experiments of the 2000s. A mix between a pickup truck and a retro sports car designed to grab attention with its eccentric styling. And in that sense, it succeeded, at least visually. Its design, inspired by 1950s hot rods, combined with a retractable hardtop, made it unique in the market. However, beyond its looks, its performance and reliability left much to be desired. Equipped with a V8 engine that promised power, the reality was disappointing. The transmission was problematic, fuel consumption was excessive, and the suspension was far too stiff, making daily driving uncomfortable. The interior, far from premium, was filled with cheap plastics and an awkward layout that didn't match the vehicle's high price tag. Owners complained about constant electrical issues, ranging from faulty controls to malfunctions in the retractable roof. Maintenance was expensive and didn't align with the driving experience. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the worst options of its time, and sales were so low that Chevrolet quickly canceled the model. Today, the SSR survives as a collector's oddity, sought after more for its eccentric design than for its performance. In terms of reliability, it remains a textbook example of how not to combine styles without considering durability. It's a reminder that aesthetic innovation means nothing if it isn't backed by solid engineering. 20. GMC Canyon, 2004-2012. The first generation of the GMC Canyon arrived with the promise of being a compact, affordable alternative within General Motors' lineup. However, what was supposed to be a reliable option ended up disappointing thousands of buyers. The most common problems included automatic transmission failures, with rough shifts and premature breakdowns, as well as a suspension system that offered neither the comfort of an urban truck nor the toughness of an off-roader. The interior didn't help either. Hard plastics, poor finishes, and a design that felt outdated even at launch. Many owners reported electrical issues, from windows that stopped working to dashboards that would suddenly go dark. In online forums, there are countless stories of owners who spent more time in repair shops than on the road. Compared to rivals like the Toyota Tacoma or the Nissan Frontier, the Canyon fell far behind in durability and owner satisfaction. Consumer Reports gave it low ratings, and its reputation was cemented as one of the weakest options in its segment. Today in the used market, it's a truck experts recommend avoiding if reliability is what you're after. 19. Hummer H2 SU, 2005-2009. At first glance, the Hummer H2 SUT looked like the ultimate truck, imposing, aggressive, and with a presence that demanded respect. But behind that intimidating appearance was a vehicle riddled with problems. Its 6.2-liter V8 engine guzzled fuel at an unsustainable rate, turning it into a nightmare for owners' wallets. Its massive weight made city driving a chore, and parking in tight spaces was nearly impossible. The interior, while spacious, wasn't well utilized. The finishes felt cheaper than its price suggested, and the ergonomics left much to be desired. The worst part, however, was its reliability. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the least reliable trucks of its era, with recurring issues in the transmission, electrical system, and suspension. Many owners complained about frequent, costly repairs, which turned the H2 SUT into more of a symbol of excess than a truly useful truck. Today, rather than being remembered as a work vehicle, it's seen as an expensive indulgence that never lived up to its promises. 18. Ford Explorer Sport Track, 2001, 2005, 2007, 2010. The Ford Explorer Sport Track was born from an interesting idea. Combine the comfort of an SUV with the practicality of a pickup. On paper, it seemed like an attractive proposal, but in practice, it was a disaster. Build quality left much to be desired. Cheap interiors, plastics that wore out quickly, and water leaks into the cabin. Under the hood, the V6 engine was sluggish and unreliable. Transmission failures were so common that many owners reported being stranded on the road without warning. To make matters worse, fuel consumption was excessive, making it uncompetitive against more efficient rivals. The soft suspension made highway driving feel unstable, and its cargo capacity was limited. In short, it wasn't a good SUV nor a good pickup. Ford tried to create a versatile vehicle, but ended up with a model that stood out only for disappointing its owners. Today, the Sport Track is remembered as a failed experiment that never found its place in the market. 17. Isuzu I-Series, 2006-2008. When people think of Isuzu, the first thing that usually comes to mind is tough diesel trucks and rugged off-roaders. For decades, the brand built a reputation for reliability in demanding markets like Asia and Latin America. However, the I-Series was the complete opposite, a poorly executed clone of the Chevrolet Colorado with even less identity and support. From the very beginning, the problems were obvious. Its engines were underpowered and lacked the toughness people expected from Isuzu. The suspension transmitted every bump as if it were an earthquake, making the ride uncomfortable even on short trips. Build quality was disappointing. Cheap plastics, poor fit and finish, and an interior that already looked outdated by the mid-2000s. Consumer Reports quickly pointed out its flaws: an unrefined transmission, vague steering, and low-grade interior materials. Worst of all was the lack of brand support. Isuzu failed to convince anyone that this truck was worth buying, and with minimal sales, the company pulled it from the market in 2008. Today, spotting an I-Series on the road is almost a miracle or a reminder of what not to buy. More than a collectible, it stands as an example of how a respected brand can damage its image by launching a product with no real identity or quality. 16. Dodge Dakota, 2005-2011. The third generation of the Dodge Dakota seemed, at first glance, like a solid option. A rugged design, an available V8 engine, and decent payload capacity. It was supposed to be the mid-sized truck that filled the gap between compacts and full sizes, a segment Dodge had experience in. But in practice, it was a truck that promised a lot and delivered very little. Problems began with its build quality: hard plastics in the cabin that wore out quickly, water leaks into the interior, and questionable assembly that led to rattles and vibrations far too early in its life. Reliability complaints were constant: transmission failures, oil leaks, and recurring electrical issues that affected everything from lighting systems to the dashboard. Its V8 engine guzzled fuel like there was no tomorrow, and the V6 wasn't much better, making it unattractive in a market where efficiency was becoming increasingly important. The result was a truck that ended up forgotten on dealer lots, while buyers gravitated toward more reliable options like the Toyota Tacoma or Nissan Frontier. Dakotas from those years are seen as a bad investment, a model that never lived up to its name. In the used market, it's one of those trucks experts advise avoiding, as it combines high maintenance costs with a poor reputation for reliability. 15. Mitsubishi Raider, 2006-2009. The Mitsubishi Raider was a desperate attempt by the Japanese brand to break into the competitive midsize pickup market in the United States. Based on the Dodge Dakota, it seemed to have the ingredients to be a decent option: a rugged design, available V6 and V8 engines, and Mitsubishi's reputation in the off-road world. In reality, it was a disappointment from the start. Problems appeared almost immediately. The 4.7-liter V8, which was supposed to be its strong point, turned out to be underwhelming in both performance and fuel economy. Electrical issues were frequent, ranging from lighting systems to dashboard malfunctions. The automatic transmission, far from reliable, suffered premature breakdowns that left drivers stranded on the road. To make matters worse, Mitsubishi launched the Raider during the oil crisis, when consumers were looking for efficiency, not a gas-guzzling V8. The result was a commercial failure, minimal sales, dealer lots full of unsold inventory, and a quiet withdrawal from the market. Today, the Raider is practically a ghost on the streets, a reminder that copying a bad base, the third-generation Dakota, could only end in disaster. Instead of strengthening Mitsubishi's presence in the U.S., the Raider accelerated its decline in the pickup segment, proving that simply swapping badges is not enough to compete with the giants. 14. Suzuki Equator, 2009-2012. The Suzuki Equator was yet another failed attempt by a Japanese brand to enter the North American midsize pickup segment. Essentially, it was a Nissan Frontier with a different badge, but without Nissan's reputation or dealer support. The main problem was its lack of identity. Buyers couldn't understand why they should pay the same price for an Equator when they could get a Frontier with stronger brand backing. On top of that, Suzuki was already in decline in the US market, which made customers even more hesitant. In terms of quality, the Equator didn't shine either. Consumer Reports criticized it for clumsy handling, a cheap interior that looked like it belonged in a 1990s car, in brutal depreciation. When Suzuki exited the US market in 2012, the few Equator owners were left without brand support or easy access to spare parts. 13. Cadillac Escalade EXT, 2002-2013. The Cadillac Escalade EXT was a strange experiment, a mix between a luxury SUV and a pickup. On paper, it was supposed to offer the best of both worlds, the comfort and prestige of Cadillac with the utility of a truck. In practice, it was a failure. Fuel consumption was brutal, with V8 engines that drank gasoline like there was no tomorrow. Its massive size made it impractical for daily use, and its cargo bed was small, poorly designed, and prone to water leaks. Worse still, it inherited the same mechanical problems as the regular Escalade: faulty electronics, expensive suspension repairs, and questionable reliability. Consumer Reports gave it harsh ratings and buyers stayed away. The Escalade EXT is remembered as a rarity that never found its audience. Too luxurious to be a work truck, too impractical to be a true luxury SUV. A clear example that more doesn't always mean better. 12. Nissan Titan, 2016-2019. The second major disappointment for the Titan came between 2016 and 2019. Nissan attempted to relaunch its full-size pickup with a refreshed design and a V8 engine meant to compete with Ford and Chevrolet. But what it delivered was a vehicle riddled with problems. The V8 engine consumed fuel at absurd levels, and the automatic transmission shifted erratically. The suspension transmitted every bump like an earthquake, and the interior was filled with cheap plastics and buttons that looked like they belonged on a toy rather than a serious truck. Electrical problems were frequent: sluggish infotainment systems, faulty sensors, and lights that would suddenly stop working. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the least reliable trucks in its category, and many owners regretted their purchase. In the used market, Titans from these years are seen as a bad investment. Their resale value plummeted, and today they are one of those trucks experts strongly recommend avoiding. 11. Toyota T100, 1993-1998. The Toyota T100 was the brand's first serious attempt to compete in the full-size pickup segment in the United States. However, it arrived poorly equipped and ended up being a failure. While Ford and Chevrolet were offering powerful V8 engines and impressive towing capacity, Toyota bet on a V6 that, while reliable, lacked the strength buyers expected in a full-size truck. Its plain design and high price made it even less appealing. Consumers wanted a robust, powerful pickup, and the T100 simply wasn't up to the task. Although it wasn't a mechanical disaster, its lack of competitiveness doomed it. Toyota learned its lesson and launched the Tundra shortly after, but for the T100, the damage was already done. Today, it's remembered as a misstep in Toyota's U.S. history. 10. Jeep Gladiator, 2020-2021. Jeep's return to the pickup world after nearly 3 decades generated enormous expectations. The Gladiator was supposed to inherit the Wrangler's off-road DNA while adding the utility of a cargo bed. On paper, it looked like the perfect combination: ruggedness, adventurous style, and the promise of being a unique vehicle in its class. In reality, it was far less exciting. Experts at Consumer Reports and owners alike agreed that the Gladiator didn't live up to expectations. Its ride quality was heavily criticized. Too stiff in the city, unstable on the highway, and with handling that fell short compared to more refined rivals like the Toyota Tacoma or Ford Ranger. The interior, while visually appealing, didn't offer the same level of luxury or space as competitors in its price range. On top of that, its high starting price made it even harder to justify its shortcomings. Many buyers were drawn to the idea of owning a Jeep with a cargo bed, but ended up disappointed when they realized it was neither the best pickup nor the best Jeep. Today, Gladiators from those years are seen as niche vehicles, interesting for brand enthusiasts, but not recommended for those seeking reliability and balance. 9. Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Hybrid, 2009-2013. The Silverado Hybrid was introduced as a revolution, the strength of a V8 combined with the efficiency of a hybrid system. In theory, it was supposed to offer the best of both worlds. In practice, it was a disaster. The 6.0-liter V8 paired with 2 electric motors promised both power and fuel savings. However, owners quickly discovered that fuel economy was barely better than that of a conventional Silverado. Worse still, the hybrid transmission turned out to be a nightmare. Erratic shifts, electronic failures, and costly repairs. The hybrid battery, far from being an advantage, became an additional problem. Its lifespan was short and replacement costs were extremely high. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the least reliable trucks of its era, and sales collapsed rapidly. Today, the Silverado Hybrid is remembered as a failed experiment, a model that tried to be ahead of its time, but ended up as an example of how not to implement hybrid technology in a work truck. 8. Dodge Ram 1500, 2001-2003. The early 2000s Dodge Ram 1500 looked at first glance like a robust and reliable truck. Its imposing design and V8 engines promised plenty of power. In reality, it was a very different story. Transmission problems were frequent and appeared even at low mileage. The suspension wore out quickly, especially in humid climates, where rust also became the body's worst enemy. Many owners reported that their trucks seemed to disintegrate over the years, as if they were made of paper. Fuel consumption was excessive, and the air conditioning system failed often, leaving drivers without cooling in the middle of summer. Consumer Reports listed it among the least reliable trucks of its time, and its reputation took a serious hit. Today, Ram 1500s from those years are seen as models to avoid in the used market. A truck that promised a lot but ended up being a constant headache for its owners. 7. Ford F-150, 2004-2005. The Ford F-150 is the best-selling truck in the United States, but even giants stumble. The 2004-2005 generation is remembered as one of the worst in terms of reliability. The Triton V8 engine had a serious defect. Spark plugs could literally blow out of the cylinder head like rockets, causing costly and dangerous damage. The automatic transmission was also problematic, with erratic shifts and premature failures. Owners reported that the driving experience was anything but smooth, and repair costs were so high that many regretted their purchase. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the worst F-150s in history, and its resale value plummeted. Today, these F-150s are avoided by used truck buyers who prefer earlier or later generations that are far more reliable. A reminder that even market leaders can make big mistakes. 6. Nissan Frontier, 2005, 2008, 2022. The Nissan Frontier has long carried a reputation for being a reliable truck, but not every generation lived up to that name. The 2005-2008 models were especially problematic. Although they came with relatively powerful engines, transmission and suspension issues were frequent. Many owners reported premature failures that required costly repairs. Durability, supposed to be the Frontier's strongest selling point, was suddenly in question. The 2022 version, which was supposed to mark a rebirth for the model, didn't fully convince either. While it improved in design and technology, quality issues in the finishes and some early mechanical failures made experts look at it with skepticism. Compared to rivals like the Toyota Tacoma, the Frontier lagged behind. Today, these generations are seen as low points in Nissan's history, a reminder that even models with strong reputations can have years best forgotten. Before revealing the top 5, here's a quick reminder. To stay informed about what dealerships might be hiding and to truly understand what you're buying, subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. We're dedicated to uncovering the secrets they'd rather you never discover. 5. GMC Canyon 2004-2012. Although we already mentioned its twin, the Chevrolet Colorado, the GMC Canyon deserves its own spot on this list because its problems were just as notorious. GMC tried to market it as a more refined alternative, but in practice it was the same truck with a different badge and the same defects. Owners reported automatic transmission failures, recurring electrical problems, and a suspension that offered neither comfort nor toughness. The interior, with hard plastics and poor finishes, made it feel cheaper than its price suggested. Compared to rivals like the Toyota Tacoma, the Canyon fell far short in durability and owner satisfaction. User forums are full of stories from owners who spent more time in repair shops than on the road. Consumer Reports gave it low ratings, and its reputation was cemented as one of the weakest options in its segment. Today, in the used market, it's a truck experts recommend avoiding if reliability is what you're after. 4. Hummer H3T 2009. The Hummer H3T seemed to have it all: the brand's indestructible image and the practicality of a pickup. In reality, it was a complete failure. Its 5-cylinder engine was underpowered for the vehicle's size, and fuel consumption was excessive. Even the version with the 5.3-liter V8 failed to impress, offering mediocre power and disproportionate gas mileage. The suspension was so stiff that every bump felt like an earthquake, and the interior didn't justify its price: cheap materials and an awkward design. Worst of all was its reliability. Electrical failures, transmission problems, and costly maintenance turned the H3T into a nightmare for owners. In the market, it went largely unnoticed and was quickly discontinued. Today, it's remembered as a failed attempt to breathe new life into the Hummer brand, one that instead accelerated its downfall. 3. Toyota Tundra 2007-2008. Toyota is synonymous with reliability, but even giants stumble. The 2007-2008 Tundra is considered one of the brand's worst generations. Problems began with the engine, which suffered catastrophic failures and premature wear that could leave drivers stranded. The brakes were another weak point, ineffective and prone to failure under heavy use. The transmission, far from smooth, delivered constant jerks that made driving uncomfortable and unsafe. The chassis was also criticized for its tendency to rust, especially in humid climates or on salted winter roads. Consumer Reports rated it as one of the least reliable trucks of its era, and many owners felt betrayed by a brand that had always been a symbol of durability. Today, these Tundras are avoided in the used market, and Toyota learned its lesson by reinforcing quality in later generations. 2. Nissan Titan 2004-2006. Nissan's first attempt at a full-size pickup was a disaster. The 2004-2006 Titan arrived with a powerful engine and aggressive design, but mechanical problems doomed it. The rear differential was so defective it could fail in the middle of the road, leaving drivers stranded. The braking system seemed designed for a much smaller vehicle. Vibrations, fluid leaks, and premature wear were common complaints. The transmission, far from reliable, would give up without warning. Owners quickly realized that towing with a Titan was a gamble. You never knew if you'd make it to your destination. Consumer Reports gave it low ratings, and its reputation was so badly damaged that Nissan took years to recover credibility in the segment. Today, a Titan from those years is synonymous with problems, and few dare to buy one used. 1. Lincoln Mark LT 2006-2008. At the very top of this list is the Lincoln Mark LT, a model that represents everything a pickup should not be. Lincoln thought it was enough to take a Ford F-150, add chrome, leather, and an inflated price tag to conquer the luxury market. The result was a vehicle that offered nothing truly exclusive. Under the hood, the 5.4-liter V8 consumed fuel at absurd levels, and its performance didn't justify the expense. The interior, while attempting to be luxurious, was practically identical to the standard F-150, leaving buyers feeling cheated. The soft suspension made the truck feel unstable on the road, and its reliability was harshly criticized by Consumer Reports. Sales were so low that Lincoln quickly abandoned the idea of building pickups. Today, the Mark LT is remembered as a failed experiment, a vehicle nobody asked for and nobody misses. A perfect example of how luxury without substance has no place in the pickup world. Now that you know the 25 least reliable pickups in history, if you had to choose one of them as your pickup for the next month, which one would you choose? We would love to read your comments and see how many of us agree on the same pickup. Although there is one thing many of us will agree on, and that is watching the video on the screen, because we know it can save us a lot of money, time, and headaches in the future. But first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like, because if you don't, we may never see each other again.